Hi guys, welcome back to another video, and today I have a very interesting GFX tutorial for you guys. So I asked you guys in my live stream today what kind of GFX tutorials you guys would like to see, and you guys asked for a step-by-step GFX tutorial. So pretty much a step-by-step tutorial of a GFX that I have already made, so you can recreate it, make it your own, and all those things. I thought that was an absolutely fabulous idea, so today I'm going to be showing you guys how I made my Blanket Fort GFX step-by-step. Now this is going to be kind of a more intermediate GFX tutorial where I'm just going to be going with the flow and showing you guys how I made this. If you need a full GFX tutorial for Blender 2.8 and 2.81, I have it linked in the info card in the top right corner so you can check it out. It shows you how to use a rig, an HDRI, all those things, so definitely be sure to check it out. And also, if you need to know how to use the woman rig, I also have a tutorial on that. You can find it in the info card in the top right corner. So be sure to watch those videos and then watch this one so you can recreate the Blanket Fort GFX with me. So first, I am going to be listing the steps that we are going to be going through in this video. I will also have them linked in timestamps down in the description so you can go to the step that you want to see. So first we are going to be going to Roblox Studio and picking out all the things we want for our scene. Next we are going to be going and finding some PBR textures online to give different objects realistic textures. Next we will be going into Blender and setting up our scene. Then we will be setting up lighting in Blender. Then we will be setting up our render settings, and finally we will be rendering and then editing. So I will have all the timestamps linked down in the description below if you would like to see a certain part of the video, but we will just be getting started. So first we will be starting in Roblox Studio. So we are just going to open that up, and pretty much most of my models come from Roblox Studio. What I like to do for my GFX is I like to go into Roblox Studio, get an object that I want, and then add a realistic PBR texture in Blender. Sometimes if it is an easy object, I will build it myself, but most of the time I will get things from the toolbox because I just find that a little bit easier, especially for more complicated objects that would be harder to find. So now that our base plate is open, we are going to go to View and then Toolbox and get out some objects that we would like for our GFX. So since we are recreating this Blanket Fort, you can do it however you like, but I think I'm going to recreate pretty much the same thing. So usually for Blanket Forts you need chairs. I will be getting some pillows. I have some fairy lights at the top that I will be getting as well, some blankets, and maybe the mugs and the cookies, but I am not sure. So pretty much you're going to pick whatever you want in your Blanket Fort, and then we will be looking it up in the toolbox. So first I am going to find a chair that I like. So we're just going to look that up, and we'll take probably this one. I'll probably take the same one that we had before, and you're just going to drag it into your Roblox Studio. Next we will be looking up a blanket. I will get the same one that I also used in the original GFX. I believe I used this one. I just took a normal blanket, and we will just set it next to the chair. Next we will be picking out our accessories for the inside of the Blanket Fort. So I got fairy lights. But pretty much you can be creative and use whatever you like. Look up any objects that you like. You want to make it your own, but you can also follow along with this tutorial exactly step by step if you want to as well.
Next I'm going to be picking a pillow, so I guess we will pick this one. I kind of like this pillow, so maybe we're going to go for more of a black and white theme in this GFX. That would be very cool. And I think we'll pick one more pillow. This one looks kind of like a regular pillow, which I enjoy. Maybe actually we will go with one of these. Let's take a look at these. I actually like how these look, so I'm going to ungroup them really quick and then pick one that I like. I think I like this one. It's kind of a grid, so we are going to delete all the other pillows.
And here are our props for the GFX. So as you can see, I think we have everything pretty much except the mug and the plate of cookies, though I don't think I am going to be doing that today. And now we need to pick a character that we want in our GFX. So really quick, I am going to change my Roblox character's outfit so she matches the GFX a little bit better, and I will be right back. Okay, so I put on an outfit that matches the GFX a little bit better, so now I am going to be loading my character. We are going to be doing it the same way that we do in the GFX tutorials. Like I said at the beginning of the video, if you do not know how to make a GFX yet, I would recommend watching my beginner's tutorial first, linked in the info card in the top right corner. Also, make sure when loading your character to spawn R6 and not R15. no matter if you have a woman rig, a blocky rig, a man rig, or whatever kind of rig you have, make sure to spawn R6 or your textures will be messed up. So we are just going to click that and load in my character. My outfit may not match very well. Actually, I think it looks pretty good. So we are just going to export as normal. So what I'm going to do is take my accessories and my head, because I am using the woman rig, and export it to my folder I made on my desktop right here. And I'm going to export those as accessories, and then export the rest of my character as the texture. Next, we are going to be exporting each one of our different props for the GFX, and you want to export them separately. So first, we are going to click the chair, right-click on the right side, export selection, and just name it chair, and do this for everything. So we are going to take the blanket,
Right-click it, export selection, blanket. Then we are going to do that with the pillows. So click a pillow, export selection, oops, pillow 1, and then the other one will be pillow 2. And then finally the fairy lights, and I will just export these and name these lights.
So now we are done in Roblox Studio, and now we are going to be downloading our textures. So I am going to go onto the textures website I use. This website is called 𝐫𝐞𝐜𝐴 Textures, and these are PBR textures that are free that you can use for your GFX. So pretty much we are going to need to think of the different things in our GFX and what we are going to need textures for. So if we take a look at what we exported, we have a blanket that'll need a texture, a chair that'll need a texture, the lights won't need a texture, and the pillows already had textures on them, but if you have a pillow you'd like to add a texture to, you can do that as well by looking up a fabric texture. It is completely up to you, but I think what we are going to do for this GFX is to add a blanket texture and a chair texture, and I believe that is it. And then also, you will need a texture for the floor if it applies to your GFX. So first we will be looking up a chair texture, and I will just be looking up wood because the chair is made of wood, and picking out one we like best. So since we're going for a little bit of a darker theme in my GFX, I'd like to get a little bit of a darker wood, maybe like this one. And I always download the 4K one. So I'm just going to click that and save it to our desktop. Just like that. There we go. And if you have not seen my tutorial on how to add PBR textures yet, I recommend you check that out. I'll have it linked in the info card in the top right corner. It is a super quick video that'll show you how to get super realistic textures in Blender. Now we are going to be getting a texture for our blanket, so I'm going to look up fabric and pick one that looks best. So here's the one I used for the first GFX, though I think I'd like to go for a different one for this GFX. So let's take a look. I'm not quite sure which one I'd like. Actually, I think we might go with the white blanket texture again. I thought there was a black one, but unfortunately there's not. So I'm going to export that as 4K and save it to our desktop. And finally, I'm going to need a texture for the floor, so I'm going to look up wood planks and just pick one I like best.
I feel like maybe those at the top, or is there anything darker? I feel like we will go with this one. I feel like this one looks really good. But I also feel like, there's mold on that one, or moss or something like that. I feel like I like this one a little bit more. It has a little moss, but that's okay.
So we are going to save that to our desktop, and you are going to repeat this step, saving the textures you like until you have all the textures that you need saved on your desktop. So when you are done with that, they will all be saved right here, and what I like to do is open my GFX folder and make different folders for each texture. So pretty much what you are going to do is open the folder for your GFX, you are going to right click, new folder, and make a folder for each texture. So I have a wood texture, I have a fabric texture, and I have a floor texture, or my wooden planks texture. Just like that. Alright, and now on the left side we are going to open up our zip folders and drag all the contents into the right folder. So this is the wood folder, so I am going to take all of these and drag them to the wood folder over here. So again, we are going to do this with the fabric texture. Here's the fabric texture we just saved. We're going to double click it to open it, copy all the files, and drag them to the new folder we just made. And finally, with the wooden floor, copy all of them and drag it to the floor folder. And then we can just delete all these files off our desktop because we're done with them, and leaving only the GFX folder. So now we are all done downloading our textures, and finally we are ready to go into Blender and start to make our GFX. So first I am going to get my rig file. What I am going to do is go and copy my rig file right here. So I am using a woman rig. So what I like to do is to save my rig files and then copy them when I need them. So I have this rig file saved right here. I'm going to right click my woman rig, copy, and then paste it into my GFX file. So I still have the original rig when I want it, but I also have a copy in here that I can use for my GFX so I don't use the original one and have to re-download it again. So we're just going to double click that to open it and open up Blender just as it loads really quick, and we are going to add texture to our character, and I will be right back. Alright, so now that our character is all set up and loaded in, we are now going to start setting up our scene. So first, I think what I'm going to do is add the floor and add the texture to the floor. Like I said earlier in the video, if you have not seen my PBR Textures tutorial, I highly recommend you check it out. It will be so helpful for following this tutorial, and also it shows you how to get realistic textures in your GFX in Blender 2.8, so I definitely recommend you check it out. But we are just going to be adding a floor. What I like to do is hit Shift-A, go to Mesh, and add a grid for the floor. I use S on my keyboard and then drag to size it up. However big I think I'll need it. And then at the top, we click the little plus sorta towards the middle of the top, and we hit plus, general, and then shading. And I am going to be adding the wood texture. So down at the bottom, we'll have our node editor. We are going to hit new, and then on the left side, we are going to find our desktop. So if you can't find it, you can just hit this little up arrow at the top and go back until you can find it. Right here's my desktop. So I am just going to open my step-by-step, and then we are going to pick the floor folder. And then just drag everything in where it goes. So we are going to drag color to color, just like that. And then we are going to add roughness, add a gamma node, and then turn the roughness to non-color. And just connect these color to color and color to roughness. Then we are going to add our metallic texture, and that actually goes above the roughness one. I made a mistake. There we go. Turn this to non-color, and we are going to drag color to metallic. Next, we are going to add in our displacement texture and our normal texture. Turn them both to non-color. And then we are going to add in a normal map right there and a bump, and we're just going to connect these all up. So normal to normal, displacement, color to height, color of the normal map to color of normal map, and normal to normal. There we go. And then we are going to add the depth. So then on the right, we are going to go to our modifier properties, add a subdivision surface, turn it up to about 4, simple, add a displacement, new, go to our textures, open this up, displace, and then turn it down to like a 0.05. There we go, and there's our wooden floor. Like I said before, I cannot stress this enough. If you have not seen my PBR Textures tutorial, I show you guys how to make realistic textures just like this in Blender 2.8. Please be sure to check it out if you have not, because I give a very in-depth tutorial of how to do it. It is so easy. Just be sure to check it out. Next, we are going to be adding in our chair and pretty much doing the exact same thing. So we are going to import OBJ and select our chair OBJ. It might spawn a little bit farther away. All you need to do is go to Edit at the top, go down to Operator Search, and type in Set Origin. Pick that and then select Origin to Geometry, and we can move it wherever we like. So I'm just going to bring it over here, go to the Shading tab, and we are going to make sure we have the chair selected. I'm going to delete the texture that it came with and hit New Texture. We are going to hit the little up arrow to get back to our previous folder and now select the wood folder. And then we are just going to connect the dots, so color goes to color.
Then we are going to get the roughness, add the gamma, make sure to turn this to non-color, color to color, color to roughness. Then we are going to add a displacement and our normal map. Set those both to non-color. normal map. I added a color ramp on accident. Oopsie daisies. We don't want that. We want a normal map. There we go. Just delete this color ramp that I added by accident. And add a bump. And we're just going to connect the dots again. Just like this. Super exciting stuff. And there we go. And now we're going to add the same modifiers on the right. Subdivision surface, turn it up to good for displace. New.
Also, you may not be able to turn up your, what is it called, your subdivisions as much because it may lag your computer a little bit. So sometimes what you can do is turn it down to like a 3 or a 2, and I also recommend turning down your viewport one if you're lagging. Also on the bump, really quick, as you can see, the chair is kind of super bumpy and weird looking. I'm going to turn down the strength so it doesn't look too weird. Maybe to like right there. As you can see, it made it look a little bit better. And finally, we are going to be adding the blanket.
So import 𝐸𝐴.obj, add the blanket in, and we're just going to do the exact same thing over again, adding the blanket texture. So I will add that in really quick. Hit the up arrow, fabric, color. I'm going to add color to color, just like that. Then we are going to add the roughness, add a gamma, non-color, shrink that down, just like this. And then we will add our normal map, our displacement map, non-color on both of those, just like this. Normal map, and then we will add our bump map, normal to normal, color to height. This one doesn't want to connect. They're not far enough apart. There we go. Color to color. And a normal to normal. Awesome.
And I don't think I'm going to add any modifiers on this one because I don't want to make it too crazy. You can if you want to, but I don't think I'm going to. And I'm going to turn down the strength a little bit so it's not too crazy looking. And now we have the texture added to all our objects. They look kind of weird because, as you can see at the bottom, we are in 3D view of solid. So if you look at material, you can see it, but that's sometimes kind of laggy. So we're going to stick with this. And now we are just going to add in the rest of our props. So we will import the lights. We will import the pillow 1, and we will import the pillow 2. Awesome. We also want to make sure that none of these objects are going to appear transparent. So what you want to do is go to your shading tab, and then we are going to click our pillow, and it'll come up with its nodes. As you can see at the bottom, this one right here shouldn't be here, and it's going to make your pillow or what object you have selected transparent, because as you can see, it is connected to alpha. So all you need to do is make sure you select none of the nodes by just clicking the background. You're going to click this node right here and hit delete and just get rid of it. Same with this pillow, but as you can see, this one doesn't seem to have any transparency. Ooh, it actually does, so we are going to delete that. You can find all the textures for your object by going on the right, going to the materials tab right here, and then going through the materials just to make sure none of them are transparent. So there we go. Now everything is good to go. We have everything set up, and now we are ready to start setting up our scene. So you can set up your scene pretty much any way that you like, but I will just be showing you guys how I set up this one for my Blanket Fort GFX. So what I like to do is to set up the scene first and then put my character in. So what I am going to do is select this rig piece and move my character out of the way until we are ready to pose her into the scene. First, we are going to be adding the chairs. So pretty much I am just going to set them up like I did in this GFX. As you can see, they're kind of set up to hold up the blankets. So we are going to be turning them whichever way we like. It is up to your personal preference, but I pretty much turn them so the backs of the chairs were facing the inside of the fort. So we're just going to do that. You can use Shift and D on your keyboard to make another chair, and then I am just going to move that back. As you can see in my GFX, I have 4 chairs, so that's what we are going to go for. So Shift and D on your keyboard, and then use R to rotate. If you want to know how I got into this top view, I used this little axis up here. So I just selected the Z to look at the top view. You can hit any of these circles to look at a different side. We're just going to use Shift and D again to add a chair, and then we'll go down to see how this looks. So I think this looks pretty good. You can set it up however you like. It looks like the chairs are in the ground a little bit, so I'm going to Shift click each of them so we have all of them selected and move them up out of the ground. We don't want them in there. Just like that. I also recommend adding your camera towards the beginning of your GFX so you can always go back to your camera and see what you are rendering. So I'm going to use Shift and A and add a camera. Make sure you are in object mode in the bottom left corner. If you are in pose mode, it will not let you do this. So we're going to add a camera and look inside and just set it up where we think the GFX is going to be set up, just so we have something to look at. If you want to change what size your camera is, you can come over on the right where this little printer icon is and change the resolution. I'm going to keep it at this size, but you can make it like an icon size if you make it 1000 by 1000 and lots of different things. So just set it up however you like. I'm going to keep it at this size and just move it right here. Okay. So now that we have our camera all set up, we are going to continue setting up our scene. You can just hit the 0 on the number pad on your keyboard to toggle your camera view, or whichever way you prefer. You can also go to View in the bottom left corner, select Cameras, and set Active Object as Camera, so you can also look in your camera. That was a lot of time saying camera. So now we are going to be setting up our blanket, and I'm just going to grab this and move it where we want it to be. So we want it to be over top the chairs. So we are going to put it and move it over the chairs and then look in our camera view to see how it looks. So we're just going to move it around a little bit, and I think that looks good. And next, what I did so the blanket drapes over the chairs on the sides is I actually duplicated this blanket and then kind of rotated it so we had more blanket. So what you're going to do is hit Shift and D on your keyboard, which will make another blanket, and then use R on your keyboard to rotate it to the side. And we are just going to set it up right here, kind of trying to be careful. Shift D, the top blanket again, and then adding in more blanket on the side. Let's look in our camera view. So as you can see, the blanket is draping over the sides. The only problem is that this blanket is kind of sticking out at the top. So if I turn on the texture, as you can see right here, it's kind of sticking out where it wouldn't normally be. And I'm going to show you guys how to get rid of that part right now. So if we go back into solid view, we're going to get out of camera view. First, let's select this blanket. We're going to drag it up a little bit, and pretty much what we want to do is take off this end piece so it doesn't stick out from the other blanket and it looks like they're all one big blanket. So down in the bottom left corner, when you have this blanket selected, you are going to go down here where it says Object Mode and select Edit Mode. And it's going to give you all these different crazy things. Pretty much all you need to do is get a good view of your blanket and what part you want to delete. You are going to hit B on your keyboard to open your selection and just select all the parts right here you want to delete. Oopsie daisies, messed up my tab. Just like this. Pretty much get it as good as you can, hitting B on your keyboard and then just dragging to select. And then when you think you got it pretty good, you're going to hit delete on your keyboard and select vertices. Just like that. And as you can see, it doesn't delete too much. You're going to need to select again, pretty much because it is a 3D object. So delete vertices, and as you can see, it's slowly going away. So we're just going to continue doing that. Delete vertices, select it, delete vertices, and pretty much just keep doing this until you've gotten rid of all the pieces you don't need. It kind of lasts for a little while, I believe, because it is a 3D object. So now, when you pull it down again, we're going to look in our camera. Don't want to pull it down too far because, as you can see, you might see those jagged edges. But if we pull it down as far as we had it before, right here, and go into the textured view, as you can see right there on that little seam, it looks like a full blanket now. This other seam isn't really getting in the way, but if you need to, you can just repeat the exact same strategy. As you can see, this blanket has a little piece sticking out, so we are going to do the exact same thing. So we are going to go back into solid mode, drag this blanket up, and then we are going to go into edit mode, click on one of the vertices, and then hit B to drag, and just delete the parts we don't want. So we're just going to make sure that part is all gone, so it doesn't stand out in our GFX. We just have a nice big blanket. And go into object mode, drag that back down, go back into our camera mode so we can see what we're doing. And there we go. I think that looks really good. So if we go into our textured mode, on the bottom right corner. As you can see, it looks like one big blanket now. So I'm going to take this blanket right here and add another one in the back. As you can see in my GFX, I put one in the back so it looks kind of like a cozy fort. So pretty much you're just going to take these blankets and duplicate them until you've got the whole thing covered. So let's see, we're going to take that and move it back just like that. Just a bit of trial and error until you have it just the way you like it. In my GFX, like my Blanket Fort one, it took a lot of trial and error to figure out what I liked the best. Just a lot of moving around different things. So let's test how this looks. Okay, I like how this looks, but as you can see right here and right here, we have a little bit of open spots. So I'm going to duplicate the blanket again and just drag it over into those spots so they aren't showing. And there we go. As you can see in our camera view, we have a nice little blanket GFX area. And finally, now that we added in pretty much all our props, we are going to be adding in our character. And I will add in the fairy lights and the pillows at the end. So I'm going to go back into solid view so we don't have any lag. And I'm going to be dragging my character over into the fort. So we're just going to drag her over and pose her as we would normally. So if you want her to be holding one of the props like a pillow, I think I'll have her holding maybe this one. Just make sure we set our origin. I'm going to drag this pillow over and have her holding it in this GFX. So we are going to rotate it and move it over. So just give that a little bit of a rotation. And we are going to pose our character. So I'm probably going to speed this up a little bit so you guys don't have to see the whole process because it's pretty much the same as every other GFX. I'm going to make her sitting, so I usually like to have a leg kicked up and then bent at the knee. I did this in this GFX, as you can see, with this leg and then also this leg a little bit, but it's kind of turned to the side. So I'm just going to be rotating that and setting up the pose for my character. Also, another tip I have is sometimes I like to size up my character a little bit by selecting the rig and selecting the accessories and using S just to size it up if it doesn't fit in the scene quite right, or you can even shrink your character if you want to. So that is super helpful if your character is just too big or too small for the scene, is that you can just change the scale of them. And I do this in a lot of my GFX, so it is a very helpful tip. I am also going to be changing my camera angle a little bit because I'm not quite happy with how the angle looks, which is totally okay. Just make sure your blankets aren't like messing up at all or just kind of like sticking out with jagged edges anywhere. Just make sure to do a double check really quick. Now that I am done posing my character, I'm just going to be adding in my different props. So first I'm going to be adding in this pillow, set the origin really quick, and I'm just going to use the rotate tool to rotate it to the other side and move it into the scene. Sometimes I like to look from my camera view to see what looks best, because sometimes things may not look right in the 3D mode, if that makes sense, but they look right in the render. It's kind of hard to explain, but pretty much things can be closer or farther away to the camera than they appear actually in a GFX. Just make sure to look in your camera and make sure everything looks correct and nothing is running into each other or anything like that. So now that we added our pillows, I'm going to add in my fairy lights, setting the origin again because I keep forgetting. And we are going to turn these about 90 degrees so they are turned the right way. And moving them into the scene, looking from my camera so I can make sure everything looks correct, and just moving them up into the sky. They're a little bit big, so I'm going to be shrinking them down using S, just like that, and we are just going to move them into different places in our GFX. So I kind of want to have different rows like I have in this GFX. As you can see, there's 3 different rows of fairy lights. So I'm going to be doing the exact same thing in this GFX. Just making 3 different rows, and then I will be looking in camera view to make sure everything looks right. I'm going to add them in little different directions as well so they look unique. And I think we are good with the fairy lights. Maybe just gonna move this one a little bit more. But after this step, all my props are added and we are ready to start adding our lighting and getting ready for rendering. So how I did the lighting in this GFX is all the lighting is from the fairy lights. So what you want to do is you are going to use Shift A and add a light and add a point light, just like this. We are going to come out of our camera view so we can see it in 3D mode. I might actually go into wireframe to see it a little bit better. See, right here is our lights. We are going to use the arrows to move it around. Actually, let's go back into solid mode really quick. Just a little bit of lag going from the different modes. So we are going to add this little point light to each of these fairy lights. So we are going to move this right by this light. It doesn't have to be exact. You don't want the light to like be inside because then it's going to be hidden. But you just want to make sure it's like right in front, right around it, just like that. So as you can see, the light is just right around it. And then on the right side, we are going to be changing the properties of this light. So since we want it to be fairy lights, we're going to give it a little bit of a golden glow. And then we'll make the power of it maybe 15. And we are going to test in rendered view really quick at the bottom to see how bright it is. But first we are going to hit Control S on our keyboard so we save. You can also use File in the top left corner and hit Save just to make sure we save our progress. So in the bottom right, I'm going to hit rendered view and test how bright the light is. So as you can see, it is pretty bright, and once we add lots of different fairy lights, it is going to make the room super bright. I actually want to make it a little bit more of a solid color, so we are going to take it down closer to like an orangish color. Okay, I think that looks like a good shade, so we are going to go back into material mode and add this lamp wherever we see a fairy light. So I'm going to use Shift D and then use my arrows to move it to the different fairy lights, just like this. Shift D, move it over, Shift D, move it over. Pretty much the exact same thing over and over. Shift D, move it over, Shift D, move it over. And then we are going to use Shift D again, but we are going to bring it to the next row of fairy lights. So I'm going to go to the side and bring it forward. Make sure it's pretty lined up. Take it up and then look from the side. It's kind of hard posing things in 3D view, but it's just trial and error. Just look at it from different angles, make sure everything looks correct.
Shift D, we are going to move it to this light, right here. Just make sure it is in front and not hidden inside the light. Shift D, move another one here. Having a little bit of trouble with the 3D view, it's okay. We're going to use Shift D, move one right here. And I believe that is all for this row, so finally we will do the last row.
So now that we have all our fairy lights set up, we are going to test how it looks in rendered mode. First, I'm going to save again because sometimes rendered mode can be a bit laggy and we don't want Blender crashing on us without us saving. I'm going to go down in the bottom right corner and select the shaded mode and see how it looks. As you can see, as it loads a little bit, it will be pixelated because we are just looking at a sample of it, but it looks really good. It looks so cozy. So now that I am happy with how the image looks, we are about ready to render. But first, I am going to be showing you guys my rendered settings. So first, on the right, we are going to go right here to the little camera, making sure that we are in cycles, and I am going to set my render right here. This is under sampling, my render samples to 400, and this will take a little while to render, but it'll make your GFX so crisp and so clear. You also might want to turn it down a little bit to maybe 350 or 200 if it takes too long or lags your computer too much. We are going to be going down to Film, clicking that, and then selecting Transparent. And then in this little tab, we have already set our camera size. We are going to go down to Output if you have not already done this. Under this little printer icon, File Format, you are going to open that up and select PNG, and then select Color Depth 16 and RGBA. And then finally, we are going to go to this little picture icon. We are going to scroll down and turn on our denoising. And also, I have another denoiser, which pretty much removes the little pixels. I downloaded this off the internet. I will leave a link to download this denoiser down in the description below. It works so well in Blender and really does a good job denoising your pictures so they don't look pixely. So finally, we are ready to render. So while we render, I'm going to go into this solid mode just so I don't lag at all during the rendering process. We are going to go up to the top, select render, and then render image. And now we are just going to render our image, just let it do its thing, and when it is done, I will be back for the final step where we will edit. Alright, so now that we finished rendering our image, I have opened it up in Paint.net. That is the editing program I'm going to be using in this tutorial because I will be using some Paint.net plugins, though you should be able to do something pretty similar in a different program like Photoshop or Pixlr.com if you choose. But first, we will be starting with blurring the background. So as you can see in my GFX, the background of it is blurred out a little bit, so we are going to be doing the same thing in this GFX. If you go to Effects, go down to Photo, it is TR's Dodge and Burn. This is a plugin for Paint.net, so you will need to install it, but I will have the website linked down in the description below so you can download it. It's right here. You just go down to the bottom, select this zip file, and download it, and then you would need to Google a tutorial of how to install plugins on Paint.net because I will not be going over that today. But it is super easy, super simple, so make sure you install that and restart your Paint.net, and then it should be under Effects, Photo, and here it is. So we are going to make sure we have our render selected in the layers box and open up this plugin, and it'll open up a page like this. So we are just going to wait for it to load in. You can scroll in with your mouse wheel, and on the right side I am going to select blur and then turn up my brush size a little bit. You can also turn up the intensity if you want to, though I don't think I'm going to this time. And we are just going to hold down and color in all the stuff back here that needs to be blurred out. And as you can see, this plugin blurs out stuff in the background. It makes it look really nice. So it looks like it has a little bit more depth than if we just left it as is. So I'm going to blur the lights at the top, blur the blanket at the top. I am not going to blur the chairs by the front because I feel like that would kind of take away from the depth a little bit. But pretty much you're just going to blur all the background stuff wherever you want to. It is your choice. And I'm going to stop clicking for a second and go to a different area, maybe over here a little bit. And blur just all over the background. You can go over it again until you think it looks good. And you can also hit Ctrl-Z on your keyboard to undo your previous action if you were unhappy with one of the blurs that you did. So when you are done blurring your background, all you need to do is come on the right and click OK, and it'll take you back into Paint.net. So as you can see, I will hit Ctrl-Z. This is before the blur, and this is after the blur. So as you can see, it gives it more little bit of depth, I guess, and aesthetic to your GFX. Now, I'm not quite happy with how the color on this GFX turned out. Now, we could have changed that and done another render in Blender if we wanted to, but I am going to come up to the top, go to adjustments, and go down to curves and use this. So I'm going to kind of adjust the lighting a little bit in curves so it looks more cozy, just like the original. So I'm going to drag this down a little bit, just like this. You can drag different points on the line to get different lighting effects. As you can see, you can go like this or go like this, any way you like, but I'm just going to drag the line down a little bit, just like that. Hit OK, and as you can see, it looks a little bit more like the original. Now I am going to be adding in a little bit of shading, and if you've seen my shading tutorial, this will be a little bit familiar for you, but pretty much we are going to add a new layer on the right and then select a brush size that is pretty big, maybe about like 375, and turn down the hardness to 0. Make sure we have the color black selected in our colors, and we're just going to color the bottom and the sides a little bit and make it black. You don't want to color directly on the image like this, but you kind of want to go on the edges so it has a faded look. We are going to go to Effects, Blurs. I can never remember the name of this blur, but it's the one that starts with a G. This blur right here. You guys always let me know in the comments, but I always forget how to pronounce it. We are going to turn up the radius a little bit, just blur it out. And then in the layers box on the right, double click it, and we are going to select blend mode overlay. And as you can see, it adds a little bit of darkness at the bottom. You can turn down the opacity if you want, if you don't want it to be so dark. I think I'll turn it down to like right here. Hit OK, and there you go. Now as you can see, if you disable the layer and re-enable it, it gave it a little bit more depth to your image. Let's see, what else did I do? So if you decided to add a coffee cup or a hot chocolate cup to your GFX, right here as you can see, I edited on some steam. So if you want to, you can do that as well. I didn't add a coffee cup to mine, so I am not going to be doing that, but pretty much I just looked up a steam or a smoke overlay and added that in, and it looks super cute and also gives it another little bit of realism. I believe that is it, other than adding my watermark. So what I'll do is just add a new layer, and I will go to the text, select a font that I like, that I think goes with this GFX. We'll just go with this one for now. Pick white for my color is what I usually do, but you can pick any color you want, and I'm just going to write my name right here. I'm going to turn down the opacity so it isn't as noticeable, and then just resize it and put it somewhere where it's still on my character, so my GFX can't be stolen, but it isn't quite noticeable. So maybe we'll stick it right here. And there we go. Here is our new Blanket Fort GFX, and they are pretty similar. The one I made before is a little bit lighter and warmer, so if you want that kind of look, I would recommend adding more lights at the top and things like that. But if this video helped you guys out, please be sure to leave a big thumbs up, and if you like this type of video, be sure to let me know down in the comments below if you want to see more just like this one, and if so, what GFX you would like to know how to recreate. Also, let me know down in the comments if you have any questions at all. This is kind of a new video style for me, so I'm not sure if I explained everything 100%. So if you need a little bit of help, just let me know down in the comments below, and I will try to help the best I can. Thank you so much for watching, and if you are new to my channel, please be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you get future notifications whenever I post. But anyways guys, that's all I have for you today. I hope this video was helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.